from 1957, which was like this year, Shabbos was following Chof Dal Teves, which was on Friday. And if we have time, we'll learn from a second Farbrengen as well. Okay, so this is from again Shabbos of Pashas Vaerah, Chafei Teves, like this year, Mevorchim Shvat, blessing the month of Shvat, on the year Tufshin Yud Zayin. So the Rebbe says like this: Yedua, it's known Shibayoim HaShabbos, on a Shabbos, and we've studied this idea before, is Kodesh Yom Shabbos Kodesh Nichlalim Va'olim Kol Yimei HaShavua. It includes and elevates all the days of the week. Shifnei Shabbos, the days before Shabbos. Hey, Justin. As it says, Vaychulu Hashemayim Va'aretz V'chol Tzavam. Vaychulu Hashemayim, everything was completed, the heaven and the earth, and all the parts, the cosmos. Vaychal Elokim Bayom HaShvi, and God completed on the seventh day. Hainu Shebiyom HaShvi, on the seventh day, Nichlalim Va'olim, it elevates and includes Vaychulu, it completes Hashemayim Va'aretz V'chol Tzavam, all that God prepared, created in the six days of creation, the heavens and the earth. Shnivra, they were created in the 6 days of creation. Sheishes Hayamim Shofnei Shabbos, meaning the 6 days before Shabbos. So we see that the 6 days before Shabbos include within it all the days of the week, and like on the first day of creation, it elevated all the days of the week. Okay, so therefore it says, Gemara in the Talmud, Kol Mispal B'Erev Shabbos, anyone who davens on the Friday night, Umeid, and testifies, and he says, or she says, in the end, we say after the Shmona Esrei, after the Midah, we say Vaychulu, and we ourselves read it in the communal together with the minyan. Is Maila Alav HaKosav, so it's considered Ki'ilu Nasa Shutav LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ma'aseh Bereishis. You become a partner with God in creation. It's a famous idea. The L'chura, seemingly, Kivan Shis Havas the Ma'aseh Bereishis Hi B'Sheis Mi'achol. If the creation is in the 6 days, and when do we say the Veichulu? Only Friday night after the Shabbos already comes in. Is Ketzid Natsa Shutiv Ma'aseh Bereishis? How could you then become a partner with God in the 6 days of creation? You're talking in the seventh day after the creation has been completed. Adeh Amiris Veichulu, when you say Veichulu, we say the Veichulu, that's part of the Friday night prayer. Because when we're saying that, we're not saying it just as a prayer that creation happened. We're elevating all our efforts. At that point, we're including ourselves not just in the saying of the prayer, but the efforts of the 6 days before. This is the reason. Today's the first day of Shabbos, because from Sunday we start to count and include the day of Sunday as it's going to be completed on Shabbos. Hayom Sheni b'Shabbos, today is the second day, meaning Monday. V'chein hal, etc., Tuesday, Wednesday. The L'chura, Misheshis Mei Bereishis, Avru Kfar, Rivovis Yomim. How could you say this is the first day to Shabbos? It's not the first Shabbos. Tens of thousands of days have passed since the 6 days of creation. Why would it be called the first day, Yom Sheni, the second day? So the explanation given, when Shabbos comes, this is it's not talking about the first day from the first day of creation. The Or Chaim explains really there's only 7 days. We've learned this idea before, but the idea mainly is that this is it's a unit of 7 days, and in the completion of the 7 days is on the Shabbos, and therefore every week starting from Sunday we're building a 7-day process of the week. Just like the first time. We said Vayechulu, we completed creation. God completed on the 7th day. Every week we complete the week, and the week doesn't just, Shabbos is not just the day within the week. It's the completion of all the 7 days of the week. That the idea is that we completed. So it's over, and now we start a new counting the next week. So what's the point here? But the idea is like this. Every week starts again, the same ideas. Just like Sunday was the first day of creation and was with Chesed, so too every Sunday has that element of Chesed. Monday has the union of Gvura, Din, etc. It's like we repeat it over and over and over again. Therefore, when we talk on Sunday, we talk about how the first Sunday was, the first Yom Rishon was, like it says in the tractate of Talmud in Mishnah. Because on every first day of the week, meaning Sunday, what we call Sunday, it's the same ideas, the same energy that God used to create the world on the first Sunday of the first Yom Rishon of creation. Though those energies awaken itself, so to say, and that's the energy of that day. The same thing is the second day of the week, and all the days of the week. Just like all the first days of creation get elevated on Shabbos, like we say, God completed his work on the seventh day. So too is it true in every week. Every week, Shabbos elevates the 6 days of that week. All the happenings. The point that the Rebbe is trying to say is that anything that we've experienced throughout that week gets elevated and included in a general way on Shabbos. It means more specifically, Sunday is connected to Shabbos, then Sunday would be connected to Friday or Thursday. Because Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are each their own day with their own energy, like in the first 6 days of creation. And then they all get elevated on the Shabbos.
How do you explain the energies of these different days? How does it come down that they have particular energies for each day?
It's these are the six midos, the chesed, gvura, tiferes, netzach, hod, yisod. Those are the 6 different energies of the 6 days of creation. The 6 midos, b'sheshes yom, is 6 midos, and each, like for instance, for Tuesday, Monday, which is a day of din, didn't have kitov, didn't have good, because there was separation. The din is boundary separation. So that's why also the Tuesday that has 2 times kitov is always a good day. Every Tuesday of the week is a more energetic day because it has 2 times kitov in it. So the Rebbe continues. Klapi ma hadvarim oimrim. What are we talking about? Meaning that here we're sitting on Shabbos Kodesh, the 25th of Teves, that year, 1957. What's the idea that Shabbos includes and elevates all the days of the week? The Rebbe explains, this week had in it Chof Dal Teves, which is Friday. This year also Friday. It means tonight is Chof Dal Teves. What is so special about the 24th of Teves? Yoim Ha'ilulash Rabbeinu Hazaken. It's the day of the passing of the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Chassidus, the author of the Tanya and the Shulchan Aruch. Shinistalik, and when did he pass away? Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Shemos. That year, in the year of his passing, he passed away on Motzei Shabbos, meaning Saturday night, that they read the Parsha that Shabbos of Shemos, or Liyom Aleph. All these nuances are exact because that's how it was printed. The night entering Sunday, Parshas Vaerah, meaning we were going over from Shabbos Shemos into Parshas Vaerah, 24th of Teves. So therefore, and we're sitting on Shabbos, like this year, this Shabbos, we're going to be elevating today, which is the 24th of Teves, which is the Yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. V'nimsa, if you sit on Shabbos, and Shabbos includes within all the energies of the week, Shabbos has within it the energy of the 24th of Teves. Like I said, Shabbos has all the days of the week in it, specifically Shabbos versus the other days. Ubefrat, the Rebbe says specifically, specifically the way things work out this year, that the 24th of Teves falls out on a Friday, like it does today, Thursday night, Friday. So surely it's even more connected to Shabbos because it's the day right before Shabbos, it's Erev Shabbos. Because we know that every Friday, once we reach midday, Chatzos, it's already connected to the Shabbos. There's already laws that are connected to Shabbos that kick in already from Friday. This is the custom. Shabal Yahrzeit that the Alter Rebbe had. Erev Shabbos, Omer es Hakadish Lachim Mizmashir Leim Shabbos. Shabal Yahrzeit Erev Shabbos Omer Gam es Hakadish Lachim Mizmashir Leim Shabbos Benimsa B'Shem Shabbos Kodesh Yeshna Ha'inyan Shachof Dal Teves. So that the minhag of the Alter Rebbe was on Friday to say Es Kaddish La'achim Mizmashir Yom Shabbos. The Kaddish after Mizmashir Yom Shabbos. I guess he himself would say it. So already Nimsa Shiyema Shabbos Yeshna Inyan Shachal Tav Teves has already the idea of the 25th Teves. I have to understand better what that last statement means. Let's go further. Echad HaTaimim Lakach Sheish Tzadikim Shem Istalkusam Hu Yom Simcha. So now the Rebbe says, what does this mean? That by a passing, a day of Istalkus, the day of the passing of a tzaddik, it's considered a day of joy. Where do we find that? Primarily by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, right? The 33rd of the Omer, or the 18th of Iyar. Hulufi. So what's the idea? What's there to celebrate on the passing of a tzaddik? Seemingly, day of a passing should be a sad day. So the Rebbe explains, Hulufi shbe'esi Istalkus, when the tzaddik passes away, nishmo hatachlis di yiridis Hashem lamata. There's what to celebrate. Depends how you lived your life. A person who lived their life and fulfilled their mission 100% of their purpose of their creation, of why God sent their soul down to the world. So when you complete your mission in this world, is what to celebrate. So when it comes to this Histalkus, the passing of a tzaddik, where Nishlama, they completed the tachlis, the bottom line, the intention of why their soul came down to the world, of course, is what to celebrate. What's the reason why every soul comes down to this world? Kamaimer, as it's brought down. Yerida, the descent of the soul, even though for the soul itself, it's not necessarily a pleasant experience to be in the limitations and the physicality of this world. But the purpose of it is Yerida, descent, Sayrach Aliyah, that's going to have an elevation that's an elevation even beyond how it was before. And how does the neshama achieve an elevation? Not just by being in a body. You have to work for it. When the soul does its mission, does its work. Studying Torah, mitzvahs, and performing the mitzvahs. So by being in this world with its challenges and its obstacles and the limitations of the body and overcoming all these limitations and performing Torah, learning Torah and performing mitzvahs, so the soul gets an elevation that even in this world it's able to accomplish what it needs to accomplish with regard to godliness and Torah mitzvahs. As the person is, the soul is here in this world in a physical body, is then he could reach a much greater elevation and level from the level as it was before it came down to this world. We don't go back to go and collect $200 like in Monopoly. When a soul comes down to this world, there is an area, there's a purpose, and the purpose is to, in the limitations, to work and to do Torah mitzvahs, and that elevation that it gets by this work that it does, that the neshama does in this world, elevates the soul to a much higher place than it was before it came down. So therefore, there's a gain, right? It's an investment, it's a return. Like it says, even the way the soul was under the chair, the throne of God, in the level of Tahirahi, it's pure, and even higher than that. Nevertheless, that's all nice and good. Purity is nice and good, but only through avodah in this world, only through work and labor in this world does it elevate to higher places. Nevertheless, as the soul is before it comes down to this world, it does not achieve it's the elevations and its purpose as it does once it's down in this world. So of course, if a person succeeds, and in a way like a tzaddik succeeds, or a tzaddikis, a righteous man or woman do, so of course this is what to celebrate in their passing. They achieved something, they've gained something. He says in the footnotes over here that what we're going to study about now is also parts of it is published in the Likutei Sichos, volume 3. The Rebbe says, the elevation that the soul achieves. So now, back to the question, why do we celebrate the passing of a tzaddik? Because when the soul completes everything it had to do, all its expectations and exceeds the expectations. Of course, when the soul elevates and completes its mission, it's a day of simcha, a day of joy. Because when a tzaddik is in this world, they've been effective. When they completed, in the word of shleimus, also in completion, not just finished. Surely everything they had to do, they didn't miss out anything. It wasn't like, they had 5 days, 5 years, 20 years that they could have done better. Because therefore the day they're passing, it's such a great elevation because the soul fulfilled its purpose. Every soul has an elevation, but you can't compare the elevation of a tzaddik to the elevation to a simple person. So what's the idea that we celebrate every year a Yahrzeit? The Rebbe says, because like we said, everything gets redone, the energies get renewed every year when we celebrate a certain, we remember Niskarim, we remember a certain day on its happening. Just like we said, creation is reestablishes itself every week. So too, the happenings throughout the year. That day that something great happened, the energy revamps itself kind of on that day. And therefore, the 24th of Teves is a continuous elevation for the Alter Rebbe and his Chassidim who are connected to the Alter Rebbe, specifically on the 24th of Teves. What the Rebbe is answering in this question is, if the idea of a soul elevating after the passing, so why do we have to remember it the next year on the day of the Yahrzeit? It happened already. The completion happened because every year on the Yahrzeit, the elevation continues higher and higher. And specifically on the day of the Yahrzeit versus any other day is a special elevation for the soul, even more than the elevations the soul has throughout the year, because that's the day when it had its major elevation, when it passed away. And anyone who's connected to the tzaddik, because the tzaddik is a communal soul. It's not a private person. He's a communal person. Like the Rebbe said about her father, the Friedrich Rebbe. The Rebbe and his books belong to Chassidim. So if the Rebbe has an elevation, all the Chassidim have an elevation. And therefore, Chavdal Teves is a day of celebration. Every year. Every year, the Yahrzeit is Simcha, not just the first year. Simcha Sheba Mitzad Davar Chodesh, not just a Simcha of a memory, but now something new is happening. Davar Chodesh, something new is happening now. That something new never happened before. What's true joy, true happiness? Not to repeat an experience. When something new, right? When's the person get really excited? When he or she experienced something new. And that something new happens every year on the Yahrzeit. Because we know that when a person has simcha for something that's new, it's much greater than a simcha you have for something you already possess or experienced. Even though every time something happens, you have simcha. And the Rebbe says like this, even though every time a thing re-happens, even if it's not new, nevertheless, still nevertheless, the Rebbe says, if you're looking at it as a memory, it's not as much of a simcha like when it happens the first time as when you have something new. This is what the Rebbe is getting at. Meaning to say, the Alter Rebbe we know was a neshama chadasha, was a new soul. So if the soul has been down to this world already once, so this experience that the soul had in nostalgia, most of us are reincarnations. Very few people today, soul, have never been down here before. It's extremely uncommon, if not zero. I mean, the percentage, if at all, is point of a percent. All of us have been here before, either male, female, doesn't make a difference how, over the years, and most of us have been here many times. So if we've been here many times, the soul has already gone through this process. But by the Alter Rebbe, he was never down here before. He was in Neshama Chadasha. Baal Shem Tov said that about him. And because he was in a Neshama Chadasha, so therefore his histalkus was the first time the soul ever left this world. So the Rebbe says, Roiv Neshamas Shebederis Elu. Most souls of our generations, plural generations, Neshamas, Einim Neshamas Chadashas, they're not new souls. We've been here before. We could have been here 5 times, 10 times, right? Maybe that's connected to sometimes deja vu. Is Him Hayu Kfar Ba'il Mazad. You've already been here in this world. Therefore, the fact that you've had an aliyah, right? If let's say you've been here in Noach's times, in Avram's times, and later in Moshe's times, and David's times, and Rebbe's times, you've experienced the ups and downs. So therefore, you had elevations. The soul sees it from as a process. We don't have a consciousness of all the times you've been here, but the soul does have a consciousness. So therefore, the elevation that the soul has, it's experienced that elevation. Therefore, and the soul has every time that's its Yom Histalkus, that's its experience. So therefore, the Histalkus, the passing of the soul, another time and another time, the Simcha is not so great. First of all, chances are that the reason you came back here is because you didn't complete what you had to complete. That's the Rebbe always says, we're going to end up, we're going to do what we have to do in this Gilgal or the next Gilgal. So you obviously came back down here because you didn't complete what you had to complete. So that alone is not such a great simcha. But even if let's say you did, but you've been here, you've experienced it before. Every time there's a nostalgia, it's not the first time. The souls have been here before. And they had their elevations, basis takusim, when they finished that experience, that time here. Yes, it's a different experience, it's not the same consciousness, it's a different focus. All that's true. But the fact that it had an elevation, was already experienced by the soul. So the simcha is not so great. It's not a chiddush. We've done this already, right? I've played for another team, right? So I've retired already once, so now I'm retiring again. But when it comes to the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe was a new soul. Before the Alter Rebbe was born, his soul was never in the world. Means although he was born, 300 or maybe 300 years ago, that's many years after creation. All those 5,000 plus years of creation, the Alter Rebbe's soul has never been in the world. B'meila. Yesh v'histalkus Rabbeinu Zakim, when the Alter Rebbe passes away. And we celebrate the histalkus of the Alter Rebbe. It's Simcha Gedoyla Harbi Yosem Asher B'histalkus Sadikim She'etzlam Le'ayah Ha'inin Den Shema Chadasha. So then, the Simcha, the joy, in the celebration of the elevation of the soul of the Alter Rebbe, that was a Neshama Chadasha, a new soul, is greater than even the other tzaddikim, righteous people, that we may be connected to, and we celebrate their passing, if they're not a Neshama Chadasha, if they're not a new soul. Because by Alter Rebbe, it was a new thing, a new experience. This soul has never passed away, because it was never here before. And therefore, it's the first time it's achieved that elevation. Means, imagine this. Think of it the other way. If all of us have been here and we're recycled souls, like they say, so excuse me. So we've had elevations. The Alter Rebbe's soul didn't have the elevation it needed, even if it's much greater than a soul at its source than our souls were, but never had the elevation of completion yet. Shekar Pamishan, therefore it's something that's new. It happened the first time on the 24th of Teves. The Rebbe says, and like we said before, every year that we celebrate Chavdal Teves, this idea that a neshama chadasha had an elevation, that the experience is renewed. Therefore, every 24th of Teves, a Yahrzeit shel Rabbeinu Hazakin, the Yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe, Me'ira, there's a light, it shines in the world, a light. That was very into the celebration of the Yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. And therefore there's this great joy that we should be attaching ourselves to tonight specifically, on the 24th of Teves, or B'chol Shana, and in each year we should reconnect to that joy. So the Rebbe is actually saying an interesting thing if you think about it. It means to say it's like this. It means the actual Chavdal Teves happened 220 years ago. But we're celebrating the first elevation of the soul. A Yahrzeit of another person, also you celebrate their Yahrzeit. But that soul was here before. So it's only a completion of its mission this time. Where in Neshama Chadasha, it's the soul's first experience in this world. And therefore the energy and the simcha that we have in Chavdal Teves, even though it's now 200 years after that, but we're celebrating its first experience here in this world, and the elevation the soul had is in that method. It means it could be the Alter Rebbe's soul came down after that. There's an idea that said that the Alter Rebbe's soul came into one of his grandchildren, the Rebbe Mirash's oldest son. His name was Sender, but that's the way Sender was Sender. But the Alter Rebbe lived when he came down. He was the first time. Shahais B'Shnas Talkus that happened in the year when he passed away. Tov Kuf Ayin Gimel. So today that would be 200 years, 212 years ago. Okay, so now the Rebbe continues. The idea, what is the idea of simcha? So if we're saying that a hilula, a passing of a tzaddik is itself a joyful day, because the tzaddik and the chasidim, those who are connected to the tzaddik, get elevated for their completion of their work in this world. But if we're saying the Alter Rebbe's simcha is even the greater simcha, because the first time the soul has been in this world, what's so great about simcha anyways? So the Rebbe says, what is one of the powers of simcha? when a person experiences real joy, the simcha pairs together. Simcha breaks boundaries. Simcha mevateles medidis vagbalas. Simcha nullifies limitations. Right? Simcha, there's two things that paired together that break boundaries. Simcha and melech. Melech breaks boundaries and simcha breaks boundaries. We may not be kings, even though Ev the melech, but we surely could have simcha in the Alter Rebbe's Yahrzeit. And that should break all the boundaries in our life, all our limitations. So therefore the Rebbe gives a bracha now to everyone. And that bracha that the Rebbe said in 1957 is happening right now. The Rebbe is giving us a blessing as we sit tonight, Farbrengen, in the Rebbe's Farbrengen of the 24th of Teves. The Yitin Hashem Yisbarach, God should give. Shekol Elu, all those. Sheish Lem Shaychas Labenu Azakin. They have a connection to the Alter Rebbe. And what defines a connection to the Alter Rebbe means we learn the Torah and we follow the ways of the Alter Rebbe. Most of us here in this class come and we learn Torah or every Sunday night. That's the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. And the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, every Sicha, every Chassidus that we learn. So the Rebbe says, Yitin Hashem Yisbarach, God should give. Shekol Elu Sheish Lem Shaychas Rabbeinu Azakin. Everyone who has a connection to the Alter Rebbe. Hein Elu Sheish Lem Shaychas Ruchnis Elav. Whether you have a spiritual connection to the Alter Rebbe, meaning Shaholchim Verachaisav, you go in his ways, in the guidance of the Alter Rebbe. In B'maisa, whether we act in the actions what the Alter Rebbe expects from us. In B'diber, if we speak or don't speak the things we shouldn't, or speak the things we should, the way the Alter Rebbe expects from us. In Machshav, if we think or don't think the thoughts that the Alter Rebbe expects from us. V'hein elu shemakar chaytzava migezeh shloi. Or if you're a descendant of the Alter Rebbe, physically, kiven sha'av zoichel leben, because a father automatically gives over to a child. The Rebbe himself was a descendant, a direct descendant of the Alter Rebbe. And one of the ideas of a son, a descendant, is to inherit. You don't have to be, inheritance is automatic. Because you're still a child, whether you're a spiritual child or a physical child of the Alter Rebbe. Hey, Lorraine, is Yispatla Tzam Kol Medidus Akbal, the Rebbe blesses that everyone who has a connection to the Alter Rebbe, all our limitations should be nullified. V'yumshechem, we should be given. Kol hametztarech lehem, everything that we need. Heim b'gashmis, anything, whether it is material blessings, health, wealth, happiness. Heim b'ruchnis, spiritual blessings. V'amshachati l'loi menias klal, there should be no obstacles, because it's in a day of simcha, and simcha breaks all the obstacles. Ad meheri artzvari, like it says, by blessing of a kohen, it shouldn't be later, it should happen now, in mehera, immediately. Yitin Hashem Yisbarach, the Eibishter should bless. Shnehi holchayim v'reichaysav, we should go in his ways. In machshava divrei ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. Ad v'chai yom yomim, not just in general, but in our day-to-day lives. Will be yichud specifically. What does it mean to go in the ways of the Alter Rebbe? Sheyilmudu Torah Chassidus. We should learn the teachings of Chassidus. Shazeh Moser Rabbeinu Azakin Isnafshe. Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe gave his life for Chassidus. The writing of the Tanya cost the Alter Rebbe. He was in jail for 53 days. And we should go in the customs of the Alter Rebbe. Then the Rebbe said to sing a song that we traditionally sing for the Maimer, and the Rebbe said the Maimer of Yesheves Beganim. The Rebbe continues. The Rebbe says, since this week, Parshas Vaerah, we talk about Egypt. The famous Haftorah of Yirmiyahu prophesying to Nebuchadnezzar. So also about Mitzrayim, about Pari Melech Mitzrayim, Hatanin HaGodol. Is that Seder Hayoim Shel Mitzrayim? Is that Seder Hayoim Shel Mitzrayim? Not sure what he means about that. It could be connected to the story with the Suez Canal in 1957. Is Inagnu Atam Mitzrayim Gealtanu? We should sing Mitzrayim Gealtanu, the famous song Mitzrayim Gealtanu, that we should be released from Egypt. Niger and Niger Mitzrayim Gealtanu Meshach Zman Rav. The Rebbe sang the song a long time. The song of the Mittler Rebbe, the Rebbe started to sing after he sang the song. The Rebbe is one of the Rebbe's favorite songs from the Mittler Rebbe. The Rebbe continues. So now, this Shabbos is going to be the 25th of Teves. Tonight, we're celebrating the Yahrzeit 24th of Teves. What happened in Jewish history on the 25th of Teves? Isa b'Gemara, the Gemara teaches us. They made the 25th of Teves a holiday. Not maybe one of the It's not a bank holiday. Maybe it's not one of the main holidays in the Jewish calendar, but it was a holiday. Why? The Gemara tells us. The 25th of Teves is called the day of Har Gerizim. Har Gerizim is in Shechem area, which is where the Shamronim are. Why? Because Shebikshu Kutim, the Kutim, which were the Shamronim, they wanted to Shamidu Beis Hamikdash Mizui. If they put up in the days of Alexander the Great, means the early day. Who were the Kutim? The Kutim were brought to the Shamron, the north, by Sancheriv. So when they exiled the 10 tribes, they couldn't leave the area empty. So they filled the Shamron with the north of Israel with the Kutim, known as later as the Shamronim. So they were there even when the Jews came back with Ezra and the second Beis Hamikdash, and there was a lot of problems with them. They had up until the time of Alexander the Great, which was a long time. They suffered a lot from the Kutim. They murdered their Jews when they were trying to build Jerusalem. So look it up in history, the story of the Kutim. So it says, Shebikshu Kutim, the Shamronim, Shamidu Beis Hamikdash Mizui, if they put up a false temple, a false Beis Hamikdash, the Rebbe says, a false temple, Bahar Gerizim, on the Mount of Gerizim, again, it's in the area of Shechem in the north. Alexander Moiktin, Shahayu Moishu Bekipa Lachrivai, they wanted to destroy our Beis Hamikdash. And they went to Alexander the Great, so he should give permission for them to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. And V'nasan Lamashus, he gave them permission. They made a case to Alexander the Great, and he gave them permission to destroy the temple. This is again 70, 60, whatever many years after the building of the second temple. This is before the story of Hanukkah. Bo Vaidio as Shimon HaTzadik. They came and told Shimon the Righteous. Shimon the Righteous, we know, is in Pirkei Avos. He's the last of the Anshe Knesset Agdola. He was the Kohen Gadol, but he was known as Shimon the Righteous. Ma Asus, what did Shimon the Righteous do here when the Kutim got permission from Alexander the Great to destroy the temple in Jerusalem? Lavish Bigdei Kahuni, put on the Kohen Gadol's garb. He put on means the Shmoyne Begodim. Usually, traditionally, the Kohen Gadol only wears those when he's doing the service. And he went to go meet Alexander the Great. Kivin Shira Alexander Mugden, when Alexander Mugden saw Shimon HaTzadik, Yard Mirakafta, he went off his wagon, or his chariot, Vishtach with the fun of he bowed to Shimon HaTzadik. Amr Loi, so his generals, his people with him, his ministers, Melech Gadol Kamaischa, the great King Alexander, Yishtach vel Yehudi says, bowing to this Jew. Amr Lahem, so he told them, Alexander said to them, Temus Yukne shel zeh menatzeches lefane bebeis milchamasi. Every time I go to war, I see the image of this man before me, and I'm successful. I'm in the war because he's there. It means that he always saw Shimon HaTzadik every time before he went into battles. Of course, he bowed to Shimon HaTzadik. Amr Lahem lama basem. So he said, Why are you coming to see me? Why is Shimon HaTzadik coming to Alexander? Amr, he said, Shimon HaTzadik said, Efsher, is it possible that in a house that prays for you, and on your kingdom, I mean, you want to destroy it. You allow that the idol worshippers should destroy the temple that prays for your success. He told them these are the Kutim who came to you and wants to destroy the temple. It's a complicated story with the Kutim, what they wanted to do. At first, when Ezra came, they wanted to be friends with the Jews, we're part of the Chevra. And Ezra said, you're not connected to the Beis Hamikdash. So when he didn't let them have any connection, they thought he would assimilate. So they wanted to destroy the temple. Amr Lahem, so he said to them, Harihei Musrim biyadechem, you can do whatever you want with the Kutim. Kivin shegil har grizim, charshu hukderech shebikshu lasis the Beis Halkeinu v'oisei masu yamtiv. So they went and they destroyed their temple in Har Gerizim, and that became a holiday. This is what do we learn from this story? Aleph 1. In Lachshav, we shouldn't think. The main thing is that the true temple has to stand. Why is it our problem? Someone else puts up a false temple. We have to know. That's a mistake. When the sur, which represents the other side, the sides of Klippa, get elevated, only when Jerusalem is destroyed. You can't have a temple here and a temple there. It doesn't work like that. If you want the true temple to stand, the false temples must go down. Only then then we can be sure that the true temple will stay. Number one, I was giving a tough lesson. Number two, another part of the story doesn't make sense. If Alexander the Great had his success, like he said, that he saw victoriously the image of Shimon Tzaddik every time he went into battle. If that's the case, if Shimon Tzaddik wanted to have an effect on the Kutim, the Shamronim that lived in the north, why does he go and ask from Alexander the Great? If he's able, if Shimon Tzaddik is fighting ahead of Alexander the Great in every one of his words, let Shimon Tzaddik go and fight directly with the Kutim. Why does he have to go have a conversation with Alexander? Because that's not his job. Shimon Tzaddik is the spiritual leader. Shimon Tzaddik's job is to be the spiritual guidance, and his spirit helps Alexander do his battles. We have to make sure the temple stands, the true temple. And put down to destroy the false temples. What's Shimon Tzaddik himself have to do? You put on the Kohen Gadol's clothing, because that you're the Kohen Gadol. And when he does what he has to do by wearing the Kohen Gadol's clothing, automatically, everything that has to happen happens, i.e. the true temple stands and the false temple is destroyed. The false temples get destroyed. Read between the lines. The Rebbe is obviously alluding to a lot over here. And the true temples remain standing. What's this mean to us today? 5,785. What does it mean that Shimon Tzaddik put on the garb of the Kohen Gadol? The big kahuna, the Rebbe says, is Torah Chassidus. It's the teachings of Chassidus. She pnimis Torah. It's the inner dimensions and teachings of Torah. Shar Kadosh Baruch Hu Kohenhu. That God is known as a Kohen, like it says. The Gemara brings down. We learned this. Alekechem Kohenhu. Your God is a Kohen. Ubigdei kahuna hu alavushim shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. What are the clothes of the Kohen Gadol? The clothes of Hashem. What is the clothing of Hashem? HaTorah b'chlal. It's generally Torah, and specifically Pnimis HaTorah, Befrat, specifically. These are the clothing and the crown of the king. So what do we have to do? And garb ourselves with the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Don't learn Chassidus only when you're in Jerusalem in the temple. Go out to the world, represented by Alexander the Great. In big de kahuna, with our garments, with the Tanya, with the Kutei Torah, with the Torah Or, with the Chumash. It's not enough just that the special people should learn Chassidus. The just selected few. The Alter Rebbe was told by the tradition of the Baal Shem Tov from Mashiach that the well springs of Chassidus must go outside. The Shimon Tzaddik went to Alexander the Great. And that's how you destroy false temples, false ideas. The Gemara asks the question, the Gemara challenges what he did. How is he allowed halachically to put on the Kohen Gadol's clothing that's designated exclusively for the temple's service and go out and meet Alexander the Great? He wasn't in the temple at the time. It's forbidden to walk with the Kohen Gadol's specific. I mean, obviously, the Kohen Gadol doesn't walk around naked, but he has weekday clothing. He has regular clothing. But how is he able to wear the clothing of service of the temple outside of the temple? It's forbidden. So one of the answers the Gemara gives in this specific case, obviously, it was a crisis, right? Is Eis Lasis Lashem Efer Torah. There's a ruling. Eis, and there's certain times we have to do in order to maintain Torah. Obviously, this is a very guarded concept. Torah says that there's specific times when we have to override the system in this moment of crisis. Sometimes, for the sake of God's name, sometimes you could do something that traditionally we shouldn't do, like Elijah the prophet sacrificing on the Mount of Carmel, even though at that time was forbidden to sacrifice outside the temple. So the Rebbe says, "V'cheinu b'inyan hafatzis me'anas chutzah." So too, when it comes to taking the wellsprings of Chassidus, a person could say, Chassidus belongs in the base medrash, in the few, in Yerushalayim, in New York. It's also to take the Ma'ayonos out to the world. But we're in a moment of crisis. The Rebbe says, even though some people would challenge the Rebbe going out there, so out there with Chassidus. In early generations, they didn't do that. And even before the Baal Shem Tov, the learnings of the secrets of Torah are only for the selected few. For Asr Hayel, it was forbidden to teach Kabbalistic and secrets of Torah outside of a selected few. That's good when everything is in order. There's no crisis. When we're in a crisis situation, you put on the garbs of the Kohen Gadol. He went out to Alexander the Great to break all the obstacles. As an example, Rabbeinu Azakin that the Alter Rebbe gave about what is the idea of teaching Chassidus, specifically when he was challenged by a student of the Baal Shem Tov that his teacher, the Maggid, was teaching too much Chassidus. So the Alter Rebbe quieted down the anger there, and he gave the example of Ben Hamelech Shechala, that there was a son of a king that got sick. V'tziva Hamelech Lischakes Even Hayikarish B'Keser Melech. And the king was told by the doctors the only way for this child to be saved is if they grind the most precious stone of the crown into a powder and a liquid. And he told his servants to do that. And put in a drop of that medicine made of the stone into the mouth of the son of the king. Because if one drop, even if a lot of it spills on the floor, but one drop enters the mouth of the son, then the son will be saved and be healed. Obviously, in a regular day, if the crown prince isn't sick, you would never think about grinding and turning into powder and medicine and liquidizing the king's most precious stone. But when the king's son is dying or lying lifeless on the bed, i.e., the Jewish people need to be awakened, then you do anything. The main thing is the child needs to wake up. And if Chassidus is going to be floating on the floor, if you're going to, I once went on the radio in Seattle and Mamish, I couldn't believe I was listening to someone not talking about the Jewish religion and talking about king in the field, using who's Marshall's king in the field, Alter Rebbe. And here's someone from a Christian belief talking about king in the field. I felt oy vey, but that's the idea. Chas v'shalom, it happens. So too in the example, when it comes to teaching Chassidus, sometimes the obstacles and the concealments are very strong. The answer is not to buckle down in the synagogue, but you need to spread more teachings of Chassidus. In our generations, the idea is mamish, everyone needs to learn Chassidus. And this is the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, the Tanya, and the Kutei Torah, and the Torah Or, and the Rebbe's Memorim, and the Friedrich Rebbe's Memorim, etc. And this is very much a subject that we should talk about on the Shabbos that we bless the month of Shvat. The month of Shvat is the Yahrzeit of the 10th of Shvat of my father-in-law, the previous Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe's custom was, the Rebbe saying, the Karvas Kol B'nai Yisrael, he would try to bring close every Jew. Unconditional. The Friedrich Rebbe had unconditional love and kiruv to every Jew. And starting in the days of Friedrich Rebbe, and obviously much more after, since the Rebbe took over Kahas and the publications of all the languages and axis of Chassidus, but the Friedrich Rebbe started that the Chassidus should be accessible to everyone. So the Rebbe says, what's the bottom line? We finish the Farbrengen here. Especially, we have to take these resolutions, especially on the Yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. We have to spread the teachings of Chassidus. The wellsprings must go outside. The Rebbe says to add, aside for the obstacles, the father wants that you grind if you need to. grind the stone and to bring a liquid to wake up the child. And the oida is more than that, the Rebbe says. So even after you've taken it and grinded it. What happens if the kid seals his mouth shut? He doesn't want to take any of the liquid. Then you have even a greater responsibility. If you can't get the job done, the Rebbe says there's a flip side to this. That if we're going all out, the Kohen Gadol is getting into his clothing, right? He better be effective. If Shimon HaTzadik goes to Alexander the Great and he's not effective, then why did he go out? Means you have to make sure that you're going to be effective. It's not enough because now we already risked it. We already grinded the stone. It has to be effective. There's no effect, then what was the purpose of it? On the other side, moving Gam Goydel HaZchus, it's not just a responsibility, it's a merit. For anyone who's involved in spreading the teachings of Chassidus. We see how important it is that God's ready to give his inner secrets. And how important is it by God? And gives pleasure. Everything is worth it. God is ready to put everything on the line to wake up the Jewish people. And therefore, A, it's a responsibility, and B, it's a schus, it's a merit to be involved. Don't stand on the sidelines. Don't be a spectator, be a player. And by our avoid of spreading the teachings of Chassidus, the big day kahuna, the garb of the Kohen Gadol. If we pull down the false temples, false ideas, the false narratives, and we have the true Beis Hamikdash standing, it's standing ready to come down the third temple. We just need to bring it down. We should merit the promise. We no longer have to teach each other. We're all going to know the teachings of Torah. Like the Rambam says, because the wisdom of God is going to spread like the sea over the world. I want to wish everyone a good Shabbos, and it's a good Yom Tov for the Yahrzeit of the Rebbe.